Hello, hello. Welcome to my channel. I am Kate Volman. I am so excited because today we are talking about social audio. We're going to be talking about podcasting, live streaming, all the things. So if you're interested in that, definitely stick around. If you are new to my channel, I share lots of tips and strategies to help you live a more creative and fulfilling life. You can check out some of my other videos. I do some book recommendations, journaling prompts, and I also recently started live streaming my podcast, Create for No Reason. So I started this podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. But if you want to check it out live, you can also just come over here onto my YouTube channel. So I'm excited that you're here. Thank you for being here. And I'm very excited to introduce you to my guest because he is kind of like my podcasting angel. And I've learned so much about podcasting from him. And I'm excited to talk all things social audio today with my guest, Pedro Maciel, who is a content creator, a mentor, and a community builder. He is a U.S. Navy veteran, a podcaster, radio personality, and live stream host. He is also a 12-year construction safety professional. He is super passionate about helping creators find their tribe with the power of voice and social audio. So I'm so excited to introduce you to my good friend, Pedro. Pedro, what's up?
Hey, Kate, how are you?
I am so awesome. Guys, do you love the voice? Like already with the voice.
Oh my goodness, you're making me blush,
Such the
Kate.
podcaster, such the radio personality. It's so good. Well, I'm excited that we get to chat because I, I always call you my podcasting angel because you really helped me with this podcast. And this podcast was a passion project of mine that I actually did with a friend of mine in the beginning. And when he decided to no longer do it, I was like, Pedro, I don't know how to edit. And what do I do? And Pedro was so kind and helped me figure out Audacity and just learning a lot more about podcasting in general. So thank you, first and foremost, for all that you've done for me and so many other podcasters and newbie podcasters who are interested in having a podcast.
Yeah, no. First, let me start off. Thank you for having me on your show. This is, again, amazing being able to be on the Create for No Reason podcast. It's an honor. But no, I mean, when me and you first met, it was through social audio and on Clubhouse, and um, I try to make sure everybody gets to that level to where they feel comfortable to, spread their wings and, go off and do their own thing. So I'm glad that you're live streaming. That's another portion that goes into it with the podcast. But no, I'm excited.
Well, I am so excited that you're here. And this is kind of our second show because you came on and we did a live stream over on Instagram way
Mm-hmm.
back when,
Mm-hmm.
which was fun. But I'm excited to actually have you officially on the podcast and an episode. And one of the things that is so fun for me is to kind of watch you as you call yourself a community builder. I've seen it firsthand because you're building a really incredible community over on Clubhouse. I know your club has over 2,000 followers over there, probably more by now, right?
Yeah, it's roughly about 2,500, 3,000.
So you guys do these really great social audio rooms and you're helping people with social audio. And I want to know first kind of why social audio and why are you so passionate about this form of communication?
I'm very passionate about podcasting. And when I got introduced to social audio was January 2nd or 3rd of 2021. Mind you, Clubhouse had been around since April of 2020. The pandemic hit, everybody was on lockdown, social audio came. It gave everybody a reason to connect again on a more intimate level with your voice. And as I got to grow and know social audio, being Clubhouse, I just found kind of it similar to podcasting. So what I ended up doing, and some compadres of mine, Tanner and Roman, and a couple other community members, we ended up just help building up community, because again, it was a lot of podcasters that were trying something new, and it just stuck. and we've been doing it. I've been doing it ever since I got on. The podcasting morning chat came about, and that's been running strong for about a year and a half now. Good morning show. We were going 3 or 4 hours, but now we, got it very intentional to an hour in the morning time. Luckily, they enabled replays, and now people can come back and get those gems that we drop in the morning time if you're not able to catch it live. So I just love social audio. I've tried all the other places where you can be just using voice, and it's great. It's something about somebody's voice. You hear the inflection, you hear the excitement, you hear if they're sad. Those types of things come out when you hear a person, and then you can connect on a bigger level.
It's so true. It's so interesting to me how all of those, well, especially over on Clubhouse, how every room that you go into, it has its own energy. Like you don't see anybody's face, but it still just has a specific kind of energy, which is so fascinating. And it's the same thing with people's podcasts. And you've had your podcast. So one of the things that I love too is you're a podcaster, but this isn't what you don't podcast for a living. You actually do this. This is one of your creative pursuits. It's one of your things that you really love doing for the fun of it, which I love because that's so much of what this show is about, right? Create for no reason, just do things that you love. So, what do you feel about this world today where so many people, it's almost like we're being pushed into, you have to monetize everything you create, you have to monetize your podcast or like everything that you do creatively?
Oh man, that right there. In the beginning, you do not have to think about it going into monetization, because then it takes the fun out of something that you're creatively creating. Your creativity goes into your art. Now, mind you, it's always great to monetize and get some money for the time that we're spending, for some of the tech that goes into creating a podcast, these cameras, the microphones, everything that we're involved with. So I think monetization should not be at the forefront. Create so that way you can, if it's a hobby, if it's a passion project, create. Go out there, try it for 3 or 4 months, a couple of seasons, and see how you like it, see how it sticks, see how you start to grow, and then really focus in. Okay, well, I've grown, you know, by 1,000 followers, 1,000 people that have listened, and I'm seeing consistent growth over my downloads. Now let's start figuring out a strategy to monetize. But you don't have to monetize everything. Some stuff is just there for everybody to enjoy, for you to enjoy when somebody else gets it.
It kind of takes the pressure off too. It's like if you're doing it, it's I look at it as when you're starting a creative project, it's you are starting because of the love of it, because you love it, you find it interesting, and the more that you do it, the more that you learn. And then it's almost you get even more excited thinking about the potential of turning it into something, should you choose to turn it to monetize it and turn it into something else. You've kind of created what it was what it might not have become if your sole purpose was to monetize it from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. No, if it ends up being that in the beginning you're thinking about monetization, um, you know, the creative part has to be before that, because when you put that money at the forefront and you don't get it, then the expectation that you set, that goal that you set, ends up being like, oh crap, I failed, and then you quit. You end up in pod fade. You end up not creating anymore. So I think being creative first with your art, with your craft, with the teaching, the coaching, the mentorship, whatever you end up, being creative with, start with that. And the way I like to, explain to podcasters, live streamers, any content creator, find that one person all the way in the back that has to or needs to hear what you have to say, right? Again, we go out and cast the net and see what we're going to catch when we're trying to, these creatives and pulled in so many different directions. But When you find that one person, that one, and what we call an avatar, your ideal listener, your ideal viewer, what are they getting out of it? When you can, connect with one person, then you connect with everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And that is a great lead into for people that are thinking, but Pedro, there are millions of podcasts and everyone has already done it and everything has already been said. And they get that feeling of why, like, why me? Like, why should I create this podcast? Because there's just so many out there. What do you say to people who are thinking in that respect?
Yeah, understand your lane. Again, people have different lanes. Like I can live stream, I can podcast, I can be on the radio, um, uh, doing different things. But figure out your lane, and then nobody can do what you do. Nobody can do what Kate Volman does. Nobody can do what a Pedro Maciel does. Right? You can try. Everybody can emulate. And again, they say plagiarism and copycatting is a form of flattery. Like, okay, they got that idea from me. Great. Go try it out. No problem. We weren't the first podcasters or live streamers. So again, we're mimicking and emulating where we want to go. Nobody can do what Pedro does. So just go be yourself. And I tell that to a lot of new podcasters. Just go out there and be yourself, because then people actually get to see the real you. You get to engage more as yourself. You're not putting on this persona, this fake person that's behind the camera. No, when you're behind the camera and you see me, this is me all the time. When you hear my voice on Clubhouse, it's me all the time, and nobody can do what I do. You can try, and that's great, but go be you.
Go be you. It's so simple. Go be you. Just do it. So, for those, I know a lot of people, when it comes to content creation, people feel a little bit challenged on kind of, well, what should my shows be about, or what topic should I do, or how do Pedro gave me advice to just be me, but like, what does that mean? Like, I still need to come up with what is the topic. So I mean, how can somebody, if somebody wants to start a podcast, or if someone's in thinking about starting a podcast, or opening up a Clubhouse room or some type of social audio, but they just keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off and waiting for the perfect time, or waiting to figure it all out, what advice would you give to those people?
Well, if it's to the Clubhouse room, back channel me on Clubhouse, and I will help you start your first room over on Clubhouse. I will help you co-moderate and get you jump started. Right? It'll be your
Aw.
conversation. It'll be your conversation, but I'll be there. I'll be able to sit there and help and make sure that you have a good experience. Because again, I love Clubhouse. Clubhouse has I've met a lot of great people across the globe. I've been able to meet some of those people in real life. So that ends up being a great thing as well. For a podcaster just starting and I don't know what to talk about. What are you good at? Think about what you're good at. What do you like? What are your interests? Are you a good storyteller? Are you a great do you do reviews on comic books? Do you do reviews on Netflix series? Go do that. Again, there's some research and what name ends up being there, because a lot of people end up picking names, but go figure out what you're good at. What do you like? What are your interests? And I promise you, when you get one episode out and two episodes out, or three rooms and four rooms, you start to grow, and then you get better over time.
Pedro makes it sound so simple, and he also has such a great voice as he shares it. Because it does make sense, right? We talk a lot on this show about the process and kind of trusting the process and putting in the
Mm-hmm.
work and showing up and doing the work every day. And it can be challenging. I mean, as a creator, I mean, I'll ask you, Pedro, are there any times when, I mean, you're growing a podcast and you're creating consistently? Are there ever days where you feel like, oh my gosh, this isn't growing quick enough or fast enough, or I don't have the audience that I want to have at this time?
Oh yeah, you definitely hit those plateaus where you don't see the growth that you want to see, or you feel like you're putting in a ton of work and it's not paying off. But do not fret. please do not fret. Make sure that you do not give up. You push through those obstacles. If you know you're only on one social media platform and that's the only strategy, maybe try incorporating a different social media platform. If you're utilizing Clubhouse only for your podcast, there's some other spaces where there's other community members, Twitter Spaces, your Firesides, your Spotify Lives. There's a plethora of now social audio apps that encompass what you are doing. Start a YouTube channel, right? That also helps to get good engagement and be able to, funnel people back to your podcast. Your YouTube channel doesn't have to be about your podcast. It could be, 5 tips on how to record a podcast. And then at the end of that, hey, if you like more tips or these conversations, go check out the podcast over on Apple or wherever you listen to podcasts at. And then it ends up being not so overwhelming when you hit those plateaus.
Yeah. Do you think people try to do, or what are your thoughts on so many platforms, so many different options? We could be on YouTube, you can podcast, you can do Instagram and TikTok, and then people say be on everything, but no, don't be on anything. It's a lot of information. It's a
It
lot of
is.
information. So where do you, I mean, what is your perspective on where people should focus their time and energy?
Focus your time and energy on the places that are benefiting your creative. If you're a good TikToker, you have great video etiquette and you can do TikToks and batch record a bunch of TikToks and have a huge following there. You don't have to get off of that. You can try and incorporate some Instagram lives, but also if you want to be everywhere, you can. I've definitely tried all these social audio apps. I've tried Twitter Spaces. I've tried Green Room. I tried Clubhouse. When I live stream, I go everywhere: LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube. Sometimes those platforms they end up dinging you if you're not going natively in those or directly on that single app or platform. So keep that in mind as well. But try it out. Always test. Always be testing what you want to do. What is the outcome? What is your end user, your end listener, your end viewer? What are they going to get out of it? And again, what platforms are they going to be on? So get a strategy. Really figure out what's going to be your strategy. Well, I'm not too great on TikTok. Instagram lives and reels really isn't my thing, but I like putting content. I have great newsletter and good copy. Let me try LinkedIn. Let me get some of that, going over there. Facebook, all about the images. You have good images, which then transition over to Instagram. You do good food articles and blogs. Facebook and Instagram, put that on there and just test and figure out what is working and what's not.
And this is where I feel this is where, again, going back to what we talked about in the beginning, is there's a difference between creating for the fun of it because you love it and you have a message to share, and creating because you are trying to generate leads for a business, right? I think that it's so often there's content around both of those things, but they're very different. Like being a full-time content creator is very different than someone who is running a business and trying to get leads for people to call in and have a sales call. It's very different. And so I think it's a good reminder to talk about why why are you creating? What is the purpose? And to your point of kind of testing things out, it's like, okay, well, what are you testing for? Because when it comes to content creation of any kind, whether we're talking about a podcast or Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is, consistency over time is what really matters. And if we don't see those results and you're creating to actually get results, well, then that's way different than, hey, I'm creating this podcast and it really doesn't matter to me if I have 100 listeners or 1,000 listeners, because this is a message that I want to get out. And also the art of practicing doing a podcast every single day, every single week, figuring out a guest, figuring out the show, figuring out how do you get better? How do you stop saying the ums and the ahs and those things that you notice when you're a podcaster, and just learning new skills. And so I think that's really a good place, even for somebody that's interested in exploring their creativity, to really start why. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
is the purpose of it and why do you want to do it? And that's what you have really done with your community, which again, I think is so important with social community that you're creating, because these are the conversations that you're sparking in your rooms. And these
Mm-hmm.
are the people that are doing the work. And so talk about when you're as you're building your community, what have you seen with your community? Like, why are you so jazzed about creating this community of people? Because you have a really great following of people that show up in your rooms every day. I mean, it's every day. Well, Monday through
Yeah,
Friday.
Monday through Friday, sometimes on the weekends depending on where I'm at. Again, I do this from the clubhouse rooms. Any live stream that I do it from a hotel room, right? I'm constantly on the road, but the reason why I pour so much of me, and the community pours back into itself, is because we, as a whole, as a community, are passionate about the medium, right? The podcast. um, you know we were all newbies at one point in time. We all had things that we had and obstacles that we had to work through. So paying it forward, I tell anybody this. You don't have to. Now, granted, if you want to pay me for a consult, or to help me jumpstart your podcast and live stream and whatnot, perfectly fine. We can talk. But as long as you're paying it forward, the knowledge that you learned, go give to somebody else. Maybe a family member, maybe a coworker, maybe a good friend wants to start a podcast. Y'all can start one collectively. Good collaboration. But to be able to pay that forward, because again, I had mentors, I had people that I looked out for and looked up to and asked questions, and they helped me, and didn't ask for a dime. So I just want to be that person to say, hey, if anything, Pedro helped me with XYZ. In this room, I heard him say this, I applied it. Now I'm, that much better.
What what have you learned over the past 6 months? Like, what's something really cool that you've learned around your creative process and your podcasting journey? Just something that you've discovered over the past 6 months.
Organization, I tell you that. Organization is key. Over the past 6 months, because I was not organized. I was all over the place. And, I think some of the craziness and getting pulled in every direction really affected the podcast and the live stream. I was getting it out, but it was such a big pressure when I got a little more organized, a little more intentional on the organization, when the episodes are dropping, when the content is coming out. I think that helps a lot. So get organized. As a podcaster, as a content creator, get a content calendar going and get organized.
You do your show. How often do you do your show?
Uh, Twice a month. Now,
All right, you
currently,
do your
I was doing live streams like every day for about 3 or 4 months straight. I dialed that back because that got a little, wouldn't say pod fade, live stream fade. A little burnt out on that. Did some rebranding, did some other things that I did with the podcast. But yeah, now it's twice a month.
twice a month, and now your show is pretty niche, right?
Yeah, so the X factor of safety is very niche. It is in the construction space, because I am in construction, and I say it's in the safety realm. Anybody that's a safety professional, workers, superintendent, project managers that have ever set foot on a construction site, those are the people that I want to talk to, and the workers are the ones that I want to listen, because we have and to actually have on the show. But yes, it is very niche because that's the profession that I'm in. But there's other projects that I have on the back burners that are coming that aren't so well. They are niche, but not to the profession that I'm in. More fun.
Ooh, like what?
Uh, so I let this news out in the room the other day. But there's a dad podcast coming. Since I'm a girl dad, I got 4 daughters. Yeah, so stay tuned for that. Details will be coming out over the next couple of weeks. So
I love that. That's really cute. And one of the things that I find so helpful from your room is how encouraging everyone is. You are super encouraging. Seriously, I think every time I come up and ask a question in that room, or if I say anything like, "Well, I feel frustrated because of this or that," eh, Pedro's response is always, "Keep going, keep doing
yeah,
it, keep going."
that's it. Because if you think of, if you really sit back and think about it, yes, do we have to take breaks? Of course. Do we get pulled in all different directions? Life happens to everybody. But if you quit, you're gonna be sitting there thinking about, what if I would have went one more day? What if tomorrow was that one day where I land that brand deal, that brand sponsorship, that big fish sponsor, the big ad revenue that I want to come in? What if tomorrow would have been that day? So keep going. You never know what's going to happen. So keep pushing through that. And I tell everybody this, people have heard me say this in the community. If you fail, if you feel like you're failing, it's not a failure, it's a lesson. But if you feel like you're failing, fail forward, right? Don't fail, don't stop, fail forward, right? So that way you can keep going, one foot in front of the other, little bites at a time.
That's it. That's all you can do. Oh my gosh. And speaking of community, I just have to share, for those that are listening on the podcast, they're not seeing, but there's actually quite a few of Pedro's friends in the chat over on YouTube, and Chuck and Mark and Carrie. Shout out to them for joining us on the live stream, and Raquel. And I know they all are big, big fans. And Chuck said you also don't forget about your radio station.
Yeah. Yeah. So shout out to Chuck Taylor. Catch him in the morning here in the Dallas Fort Worth area. But yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely the radio station. It has a bunch of music over there. I go live from time to time, have little shows that last about an hour or two. I do some DJ mixes over there. So I really wanted that radio station to start to build and incorporate some more people that are in the radio space, maybe have some, shows that run 24/7, some syndicated shows. So yeah, I just figured, why not? I'm in the podcasting space. I have all the tech to do it. Why not test it out and, see if I can make myself known in the radio area.
Yes, yes. I mean, you've got the voice for it, as I keep mentioning. What do you feel like is the biggest mistake that you see people make when it comes to social audio?
When it comes to social audio, um, believe it or not, being on Bluetooth.
Really?
Yeah, when it comes to social audio, this is a little trick. Yeah, we have, and we spend all this money on the expensive AirPod Pros and, some of the other, wireless headphones. But the best microphones, and I have it sitting right here, the best microphones to use on social audio, believe it or not, are these bad boys right here, right? They're wired in, constant, and then, right, what we call the loud mic, you'd be able to get your point across and be very loud and intentional. Now, with that being said, a lot of people think social audio, and people that have been on social audio for a while, that it's hard. It's not. Just start a room. Go listen first. See what you like. Go visit a couple of rooms, a couple of spaces where people are discussing what you might like. And then once you figure that out, all the social audio apps have a place to where you can start a space, start a room, and talk. And then people get discouraged with social audio because, oh, nobody's coming in. It's only one person. They're coming in and out. It's okay. You have to start somewhere. When you get that conversation going with one person, and then two people, and then you have five, and then you have 10, and then you have a room of 100, and it just grows. It's the long game, just like a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, just like a podcast, it's always the long game. You just got to keep going. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And again, I don't know. My podcasting journey, I feel like it's just fun to I just think it's just fun to play around with different things and not feel like you have to there's a lot of great people to follow and kind of get inspiration from, but
Mhm.
I'm always looking at what can I do a little bit differently, or what kind of show can I create that feels a little bit different, or that someone can experience differently than other shows. And that's the cool part about something that you're creating, whether it's a clubhouse room or a podcast or a radio show or whatever it is. It's it's your show.
Mhm.
Like, Pedro, I think you said this in the room one day, and I was like, this is so true. It's almost like you can do whatever you want to do. Sure, come up and ask Pedro because he's the expert a question, but he's probably just going to tell you, well, what do you think? And why don't you try it? And why don't you test it? And I like that. I mean, even something like this, I'm testing it out on YouTube Live. Why not? Just
Mhm.
because, and we'll see what happens. And if nothing else, you learn something from it. You only learn by actually doing and experiencing it. And some of the advice that Pedro that you gave me in the beginning, I feel like I was like, yeah, yeah, I get it. But it wasn't until a few weeks later that I really got it, because,
Mhm.
you can't really understand it until you're really into it. And so that's what I really love about the creation process, just
Mhm.
creating anything. Do you have any rituals, like any creative rituals that you do to kind of get yourself in the space before you create something?
Yeah, so when I'm going to create the now on Clubhouse, the podcasting morning chat, what I like to do is I like to listen to some music, right? Something that's upbeat, before I actually go in there. Chuck Taylor, that who's been in the comments, gave me some good vocal exercises to kind of warm up your throat. Drink some tea, get you a lozenge before you go on air, and then checking the tech. Any podcaster, any content creator that has tech involved in their creative process, test it out. Test out the live stream, software. Test out your interface, your lights. Make sure you're good to go. Your microphone is working if you have a microphone. Turn off all distractions, those types of things, and then sit there for a minute and just soak it all in. I am a content creator. I'm gonna be great. You tell yourself these little affirmations. Today's gonna be a good day. We're gonna have a good room. We're gonna have a good turnout. And then, next thing you know, it's at the top of the hour, 6 o'clock, and we're starting a podcasting morning chat. And then an hour goes by quick because we're just so engaged. And that's kind of my little rituals that I go by.
Cool. Oh, I like that. Pedro, what does creativity mean to you?
Ooh, that's a good one. Creativity, um, doing what you love and loving what you do. I think is creativity for me. I love to create with social audio. I love using my voice. I'm very animated, as you can tell. I'm using my hands and talking with my hands. So, being able to just create, just be myself, and love what I do. I think a lot of people, if they really get to that simple part of it, do what you love what you do, I think it will go so far. You'll excel. You'll out of this world content creator. I promise you. There's going to be a little work involved. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a grind. You're going to have to work at it. But once you put in the work, once you get a routine down, some organization, guess what? Sky's the limit.
Ah, the sky's the limit. What skill do you, if you could gain a skill overnight, what would it be? What's something you really want to get good at?
Video editing. Video editing. I tell you, and again, I've done some promos. I've cut up some video in Premiere Pro. Out of the Adobe Suite. Audio, no problem. I can get that done. It's great. But the video editing, getting the transitions. Like I watched, some of these YouTube videos and the way they have the sounds incorporated and, just the full production of transitions and how one scene goes to the next. It's awesome. So if I were to do that overnight, bam, video production.
Cool. All right. Interesting. What has surprised you over the past year? Is like what surprised you about the podcasting or social audio world in general?
That there is a lot of great content creators out there that are a little bit shy and timid to say they're content creators, but once you kind of, help them and guide them in the right direction and then they start creating, they flourish into these great content creators. So over the past year and a half, I have figured out that there is room at the table for all content creators of all walks of life, all different niches, and they're great at it. Now, granted, some of them are, you can weed the snake oil salesmen, the ones that are trying to sell you the, $1 million course with the, $30 information and, fluff. Yeah, we don't do that. It's tried, it's true. If we don't know, we say we don't know, but we'll go find out for you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So good. What is one of your creative dreams over the next year?
To have my actual own radio station, content creative production studio, and eventually maybe host a big podcast movement type event.
Really? I love that, Pedro.
Mm. Yep. It's kind of in the works. Got some things going, and hopefully it'll come to fruition soon.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I'll go. I'll buy a ticket. I'm there. You just tell me when I'll be there.
Yeah. And again, trying to incorporate all of the people that we've come across, in the past year and a half. Even some of the people that, over the past 2.5, 3 years since I've been, podcasting, content creating, and some of them are overseas. So figuring out, if we start one here in the States, small, and then end up going to where it becomes a global thing.
I love it. See, this is what I love. What's so cool about you, Pedro, is so many people are like, now, now, now. I need it now, and you take the long view. You totally take the long view, and I think that is so missing in creativity today and creating anything. But you're so good at kind of seeing that, hey, this might happen in a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3, but it doesn't matter because you're in it for the fun of it. You're in it for the long view, and who knows what'll happen. I mean, this could be your business 5 years from now. You don't know, but
yeah,
it could.
Exactly.
You just got to show up.
Yeah, you show up and continue to do the work, continue to learn, continue to grow as a person, as a content creator, and I think it goes a long way. And again, there's certain people that aren't gonna be at those levels that you end up reaching, and it's okay. Those people were there for that season. Those people were there to help you and guide you so far, and then you level up. But do not forget the people that did, that helped you. Do not forget the people that were behind you, cheering you on, the ones that you look to for guidance, your mentors. So I definitely put that out there. If anything, pay it forward.
Yes, absolutely. All right. I always ask my guests, Pedro, to share one activity that's like 10 minutes or less that the people listening can do quick and easy to help them spark their creativity.
That's 10 minutes or less. Awesome. So you have 10 minutes. You have these things sitting next to you.
Pedro's holding an iPhone.
Yes, an iPhone, right? All of our phones that we have, Android or iPhone, whichever one you use. Sit there for 10 minutes and talk about something you've seen that day, right? And I'm talking specifically to my podcasters. It could be, people that are live streaming or getting into video. Record yourself for 10 minutes, right? Look back at it, right? And when you look back at it, really critique yourself. I said 32 ums. I wasn't looking directly at the camera, but the screen or off and, over here. And the next day you come, you have that in mind. You can play it back. When you go do a new recording, you get better. And you just continue to do that. A couple of days out of the week, a couple of weeks out of the month. And then, hey, now you're in front of your camera and you're hosting a live stream or in front of the microphone doing your first podcast.
I love it. I love it. Yes. And you know what? I'll add on to that. When you do start your podcast and you notice those ums and those ahs, well, first of all, you can edit those out. but before you even, like, I didn't know how to edit. So I just, if you look at anybody's, any creator, go back and look at their first one, right? If they have 1,000 episodes, if they have 200 episodes, go back to their first one. They're probably embarrassed to watch it. I mean, it's so bad. So you have to start somewhere, and only by doing it. This is why, for me, it's like I have to podcast every week. If I miss a week, even if I miss 1 week, I feel like I do feel like I say more of the ums or ahs, or I trip over my words, because the more I do it, as long as I do it every week, it's a muscle. It's your creativity muscle that you're using on a consistent basis. So it's helpful. You got to be consistent.
And I know our friend Mr. Chuck Taylor, he has a podcast, Red Dirt America. Go check it out if you haven't checked it out. Chuck Taylor, Red Dirt America. But he gave some very, very good advice early on when I first met Chuck. Embrace the silence, right? Sometimes you're asking a question or you're getting some feedback or you get asked a question. Embrace that silence. People are like, no, sit there, gather your thoughts, and then respond. Embracing that silence, boom, it helps.
Oh, that is great advice. That's really good advice for the sales process too. When you're selling something and you say when someone says, how much is this going to cost me? And you tell them your price, and be quiet. Silence.
Embrace it.
Embrace the silence. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Chuck, for the advice. All right. Awesome. Well, Pedro, this has been so much fun. I could talk to you all day long. You're so wonderful.
No, thank you.
I am so excited too, because as everybody knows by now, because I've mentioned it like 5 times, you have a great voice. And I'm very excited because Pedro has offered to do the intro to my podcast. So we're going to create a new intro for Create for No Reason. And so be on the lookout in the next couple weeks. We're going to work on that. And I'm so excited to have a new intro, because always evolving, always creating, always getting better, and just trying new things. And I am just so grateful and appreciative for you and for Mark and Chuck and that everyone in that room that supports each other, that encourages each other, and that just really is there for one another. So I'm totally on board with coming to your whatever it is that you create in the future. I will be there for sure. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your expertise and advice. For anybody that is looking to maybe start a podcast, definitely go check out Pedro. You have to come find us over on Clubhouse. You can find Pedro on Instagram. What's the best way for people to connect with you and find you?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on the show, first and foremost. It's been a blast, as always, just like when we're inside the Clubhouse rooms. But yeah, you can find me on Clubhouse. You can find me on all social media platforms at The X Factor of Safety. You can check out the website, thexfactorsafety.com, or the radio station website, xfactorfm.com. So anywhere, I have places where you can drop me an email to get at me, and we can have a discussion.
Awesome. Well, definitely social audio is your jam, and I'm so grateful for you. And anyone who's interested at all in starting a podcast, come to the room and check it out, because it's a great supportive community, and you'll have your podcast up and running within days.
Yes. There's some planning. There's some stuff that goes on that at the forefront. But once we get those things ironed out, we'll have you up and running. And shout out to everybody: Mark, co-mods, Carrie, Chuck, everybody that showed up. Greatly appreciate y'all. Those that catch us on the replay, greatly appreciate you too.
Yes, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening. Pedro, you are awesome. I'll see you in Clubhouse.
Yeah. Bright and early. 6 to 7 Central, 7 to 8 Eastern.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.